Good sticks, everyone. Welcome to the Captain Avalanche Fancast, your unofficial source for all things Colorado Avalanche hockey and more from a fan perspective, hosted by me, Captain Avalanche Corey, and the real captain of the Orca, Dom. Now, we're no insiders. We're not inside the locker room face-to-face with our favorite players, but we hope to create a relatable and welcoming environment because we're just like all of you listening. Fans with deep passion for the game of hockey, and in this case, the Colorado Avalanche. We will discuss the games that our teams have played this week. That is important to us, and we know that that is important to you. However, the trades have started to fall as the pre-Olympic trade deadline, before the actual trade deadline, is very real. Therefore, we wanted to take a good chunk of today's episode giving you all a trade deadline preview for the Avalanche and the Sharks. Some trades have already happened and more are nearly certain to come, but we're going to discuss who we think our team should target and some players that could already be targeted. Also, we had a goalie fight! Strap in for this episode of the Captain Avalanche Fancast. I would also like to say I do have the Ducks game going right now, just in tandem with the time that we have to record it. It's one of those rare instances where an Avs game is on at the same time that Dom and I have to record. Until the day that this becomes our normal job, that is just, how things go. So we will not be talking about the Ducks game on this episode. That'll be the first thing we discuss next week. But hopefully you'll hear me scream as the Avalanche cheer. Hopefully the Avalanche score! My God, I can't speak.
I'm assuming this game must be played at Anaheim then.
It is not.
It's on the slate. Really?
No, it started at 7, so we're almost through the second period here. So it should be done around 10 o'clock. But anyway, we will talk about the games that were going on, or the games that did happen, and the Avalanche only had 2 of them this week, and it was certainly a tale of 2 games. And there isn't a lot more that I want to say about the Predators game that wasn't said better by Coach Jared Bednar and by the scoreboard. Jared Bednar stated, quote, "There were no positives. There really weren't. I hated that game from start to finish pretty much. We didn't do enough to win the hockey game, so there is nothing that I liked." Let's see. Close quote. And I think that sums up the sentiment nicely. I somewhat disagree with him, despite how angry watching this game made me in the moment. The Avs, at least for a time, didn't allow this game to get out of reach. They weren't quite in it in the first period, and with this being their first game in a while, as well as being Mackenzie Blackwood's first game back, everyone on the ice just seemed confused and discombobulated. I truly believe that while rest does a body good, it is strangely not good for the Avs. If they aren't rolling, it can throw off their mojo and dominating ability. However, Ryan O'Reilly and Brock Nelson traded goals in the first period. The Avs got down early, but Brock Nelson, who was their best player in this game, in my opinion, when virtually no one else was, didn't allow it to stay that way. Then in the second period, the Avalanche seemed to come to life offensively and began to control play, and it only cost them 2 goals. Wait, what? Huh? Jared Bednar once again describes it perfectly, quote, "We're not defending hard enough as a unit, as a group of 5 consistently. We have flashes where we were doing it right, playing hard and competing hard on the defensive side, and then we don't. The offense isn't a problem. Even tonight, it looked great at times and when we got in the offensive zone, but we're just not getting there enough because we're spending too much time defending and our puck moving hasn't been as efficient either." There wasn't by any close quote. There wasn't by any means a lack of effort by the Avalanche in this game. They weren't lazy. It isn't like they weren't trying. They outshot the Predators every period and by a wide margin as a whole, but it was breakdowns in their own zone that felt very uncharacteristic. Hockey is a game of mistakes, and whoever makes the fewest wins, but the Avs made a hell of a lot more than anyone was used to seeing in this game. That being said, UC Saros played incredibly for the Preds. This was his Vezina campaign and truly stifled the Avalanche's relentless offense and gave his team those chances to take advantage of the Avalanche mistakes. And that's it. There's nothing more that I'm going to dwell on for the Predators game. It happened. If you watched it, I feel bad for you because I turned it off after goal number 5, only for 2 more to be scored right after that. So, yeah, it was tough, especially in the second period where you have the Avs absolutely shelling UC Saros, and they somehow come away with it, not down by 1, but by an additional 2 goals, which included the conclusion of a Ryan O'Reilly hat trick. Fun stuff.
Yeah, first home regulation loss of the season. Very unfortunate. I was actually watching this game with my buddies out in Vegas, wearing my Nordiques hat, believe it or not, as we ate at one of Gordon Ramsay's many locations in Vegas. But I have to say, I did not suffer as much as the rest of you because at least while I was watching the Avs get pummeled, I was eating a beef Wellington, and I can confirm it is decadent and delicious. So if you ever have the opportunity, I know it's expensive, just do it. It's worth trying once in your life.
Yeah, that game was not decadent and delicious. As for Washington, this game at times was a stressful watch for numerous reasons, the biggest one being I was in attendance and not only surrounded by Capitals fans, but by the family of Capitals player Ethan Frank. They were behind me taking up the box. That was an interesting experience, to say the least. I originally had the misconception that Capitals fans were oddly well-traveled, but learned that Denver actually plays home to many transplants from Washington, D.C., and obviously, if you move, you don't just stop being a fan of your hometown team, but the Caps fans are here, and they are very loud, and they are very proud. But I will say, I saw many stick around to the contest's conclusion and applaud the Avs at the end of a well-played game. Anyways, in regard to the actual product of on the ice, I could not have been more satisfied with the Avalanche's performance. Yes, I can nitpick and say that the second goal they let in was a bad defensive breakdown that shouldn't have happened and came from a player that you wouldn't normally see that kind of lapse from, i.e. Brock Nelson, but the Avalanche had an excellent forecheck, which has been lacking or lackadaisical as of January 1st, lackadaisical. Please forgive me there. Freudian slip. As of January 1st, but against Washington, it was fantastic. It forced the opposition into many defensive zone turnovers, which the Avalanche capitalized on, no pun intended, and led to numerous extended cycles. I'm not dumb. I don't make dad jokes. JK absolutely do. Those turnovers by the Caps are what allowed the Avalanche to put the game out of reach in the third period. Because this game was close for a good majority of the time, as it was a 1-goal game through almost all 3 periods. But the word for me that best describes the Avalanche as a team in this game was focused, and they never seemed to lose it. They weren't shaken at any point in this game, even when a mistake was made. They stayed calm and continued to make passes and made sure the puck didn't stay in their end for long. In the final period, the Caps only managed 3 shots on goal, while the Avalanche threw down a whopping 17. And despite 5 goals getting through him, Charlie Lindgren still played an excellent game, considering he still made 39 saves.
Whoa.
But I digress. But the Avs only grew in power as the game went on and took away any chance the Caps had at a comeback as the Caps shot total went down each period and the Avs shot up. While Lindgren had some stellar saves, Wedgwood did still have to step up multiple times as the limited chances Washington got were quality ones. And when they came, the game could have been or would have been tied had the Caps scored, and they could have completely changed the dynamic. But the third period Avalanche showed up again and crushed the opposition with its league-leading best third period goal differential. When the crunch time of the game comes, the Avalanche will crunch you. The team technically scored 3 goals in the third, but had a gorgeous Cale Makar goal called back due to the most obscene goaltending interference call I have ever witnessed in all of my days watching hockey. I was so flabbergasted, befuddled, bewildered. I couldn't even chant "Refs, you suck" because I could not believe that goal was called back. Therefore, Tom, as my voice of reason and non-Avs homer of this duo, could we perhaps quickly review this and see if You can identify goalie interference where I could not.
Oh, of course, we can prove that you are correct on this because while I have not seen it, the fact that you had to inhale and take a moment just before the start of that, I knew it was going to be some bullshit.
I foolishly did not have it pulled up beforehand, so let me see if I can get it up.
Yeah, we can always crop out this little section of time.
Always. Let's do Marty Nature's goaltender. See if we got it. Okay, awesome. It lists the challenge. Yep, awesome. Okay, their video. Have a video.
Oh, we might have to keep this in the recording now just because of that.
I don't. Hold on. This is frustrating. Where is this? Let's try this. Yeah, let's do that. Yeah, I watched that. Okay. Yeah, let's see. Let's see if Sportsnet is gonna do me any favors. Hey, barg. Okay, is this it right here? Yeah, this is it. Is this gonna show me what I want to see though? Is this gonna give me the full breakdown? See, that's the problem. How can you even argue with it if they're not even gonna give you a full replay here? Yeah, okay, so that's the back half of it, but that's not the full. Okay, so this highlight is not gonna show it either. So for some reason, this video just does not exist so far to show this interference. But to give you all an idea of what everyone with fucking eyes could see, it was stated that Marty Necas somehow, some way, made contact and inhibited Charlie Lindgren. At no point, despite the fact that Necas, for a moment, is forced into the blue paint by a Capitals defender, his skate does not touch Lindgren, his body does not touch Lindgren, and his body, mind you, was outside of the crease pretty much a majority of the time. He was net front. He was screening Lindgren. That's why Lindgren couldn't make the save in the first place, and it was also a great cross-eyes pass. So that happens, right? And again, at no point from beginning to end of the review do you see Martin Necas make contact with Charlie Lindgren. My only thought is that maybe it is his stick. But then from another angle that they showed at the game, it looks like Marty intentionally lifts his stick over the top of Charlie Lindgren. So how on God's green earth they determined in Toronto that Martin Necas made contact with Charlie Lindgren, I don't know. So it was frustrating. I wish I could show it to you, Dom, because I think you would equally have your flabbers gasted here because it was bad. It was ridiculous. It made no sense. I don't understand how or why it happened, but I digress because it didn't matter. Nathan MacKinnon quickly tag team with Arturi Clutch-Lehkonen to extend the Avs lead, where he aggressively pointed at the goal for the second time this season, and then put the exclamation point on it when Marty Necas stole the puck behind Washington's net and fed it to the dog in waiting right in front of Lindgren. But it was a full team effort. The Avalanche experienced scoring from nearly every line, as well as got a point from emergency call-up Alex Barre-Boulet after Valeri Nichushkin was in a car accident on the way to the arena. Injuries are minor. He's all right. He's playing tonight. But an absolutely solid, well-rounded bounce-back win by the Avs, exactly what you wanted to see after the Nashville game.
In that last point there, I think certainly happy. I know I texted you to know that Nichushkin is okay. Just one of those Colorado driving type of things when the tires aren't in the best shape for the winter time, and it's not even full winter, but I know and all of you Avalanche fans out there who've experienced the roads, especially I-25, understand. But I think you mentioned it in previous episodes. To some degree, this was a scheduled loss for Washington. The way they lost to Nashville, I don't think there was a universe where this Avalanche team does not come back with fire in their bellies and ready to get a win. And Washington's a good team. This is not a knock on Washington by any means. The Avalanche are just an incredible team who have barely hit the deck at all this year in this battle of a season. They just keep on swinging and knocking teams down. So when they do get knocked down, you expect them to bounce right back up and get a dominating victory the next week, or the next game, I should say.
This sounds like a Chumbawamba song. I get knocked down and I perhaps get up again. I hate that song, by the way. It's good.
It's a good thing I didn't keep singing it then.
No, here's the thing. It's good when you hear I get knocked down and I get up again and you're never going to keep me down. After about the 50th one, that's when I start to grow a little tired of it. That's my only real issue with it. But anyways, yes, I agree. And I mean, overall, it was great. I was hoping that the Avalanche could dominate the Ducks a little bit more like they did the first time these two teams played. But hockey is played in 3 periods, not 2. So thankfully, there is one more period for them to right the ship here. But after a brief bit about the Colorado Avalanche, here it is, your trade deadline preview, or as Dom so expertly divide, in the trades with Dom and Corey.
Nice.
This is our space to discuss all things trade deadline and Olympic trade freeze related. That's right. In case you didn't know, the NHL is going to initiate a trade freeze on February 4th, and it will go through February 22nd to coincide with the Olympics because no one wants to be traded while they're representing their country. But the NHL official trade deadline is on March 6th, which leaves very little time for business to get done. Therefore, insiders have suggested that the Olympics represent a mini deadline where we'll see a lot of trades take place and the dominoes fall. I'm sorry. Have already started to fall. I even failed the execution. With Rasmus Andersson, the premier defenseman on the market, headed to Vegas, and a few other trades transpiring that we can't spoil just yet. But as we mentioned previously, Dom and I are going to look at trading in regards to the Avalanche and Sharks. For me, since the Avs have, so far, only made one minor move, although I will still discuss the possible implications of such a move, I will be looking at trade targets the Avalanche could and should be looking at. The could players are those who are already in rumors or speculated to or somehow linked to the Avalanche. The should players are those, in my personal opinion, the Avalanche should realistically be taking a long look at and figuring a way to pursue, as they could bring extreme value to an already stacked lineup and address some of the limited weaknesses this team have. Some fall into both categories, but should players are the ones that I am prioritizing on my personal basis. Thank you to Colorado Hockey Now for helping fill out some of my could players, and the Athletics Trade Board for helping me figure out some other could and should players. I thought about playing matchmaker and coming up with some mock trades, but I'm afraid that still isn't quite within my wheelhouse just yet. But with some of these trades, certain moves will need to happen, and I will definitely discuss some hypothetical hoops the Avs would need to jump through to make it happen. As for Dom, the Sharks are already buyers at this year's deadline, but they likely will be sellers as well, which could lead to some interesting outcomes for the team for the remainder of the season. Therefore, Dom is going to cleverly combine some Sharks analysis you'd normally hear during In the Tank with some of the action that GM Mike Grier and the rest of the Sharks are cooking up in San Jose. For fun, we might jump back and forth if it makes sense, but it might not. We seldom make sense on this podcast anyway, but we've rambled long enough already. Let's talk trades. But Dom, did I do a good job of introducing kind of your thought process here, or anything you want to add or detract from my statement?
No, I think that's a great plan there. Nothing to detract, certainly. And I think it's perfect that we're going to start with the trade that already happened. You go first with the Avs, because we have a a similar minor trade that happened, a bigger trade that you've probably heard of, and then we'll see where it goes from there. So I'll follow your lead.
All right. Well, just as Dom said, the trade that already happened. On Tuesday, the Avalanche sent Ilya Solovyov to Pittsburgh in exchange for Valtteri Puustinen and Pittsburgh's 2026 seventh round pick. First of all, the fact that the Avalanche flipped a waiver claim, someone they picked up for nothing, into assets is amazing. A pick and a prospect, not too bad. But what this move really means is another one is on the way. For all intents and purposes, the Avalanche are now down to 5 defensemen as Solovyov was filling in for the injured Devon Toews. And unless Toews is coming back here against Anaheim as I record this episode, and he did not, the Avalanche called up Jack Ashawn. The Avalanche do, though, still need another defenseman. But by sending out Solovyov, who was a good pickup, but has not been great, or had not been great as of late, clears out a valuable roster spot for the Avalanche. Ultimately, the two things the Avalanche need right now to go on a long, successful Stanley Cup crusade is an upgrade at 3C and a 7th defenseman. This 7th D in 2022 was Jack Johnson, who filled in excellently when Sam Girard was injured in the second round against the Blues. The playoffs are a gauntlet, and few come out unscathed. Having that depth is important, and it looks like the Avalanche are preparing to go and get it.
Yeah, and I think this is going to set up great for us later, because I imagine either you or I are going to bring up the fact that the Sharks have 5 defensemen who are going to be unrestricted free agents after this season. So plenty of names in the market that the Avs could potentially be going for, plenty of candidates. From a Sharks perspective, we made a similar small trade that was indicative of something bigger coming. And I think it's a great prediction you have here for the Avs. Again, I just want to say, because of the need, you are short a D-man on the backside. So it is not an if, it is a when. It is as sure of a trade is coming as you can ever predict. It is like the Starks can say winter is coming and it won't always be coming. Well, sure, it's always coming eventually, right? But it's not actually that close. What the Avalanche have here, there is actually a trade incoming, because they just simply cannot make it through the rest of the season banking on their only 6 defensemen staying healthy the whole way. So I do hope to see a move. And honestly, the trades that have been done between our franchises have reasonably worked out. I mean, I can think of Forkiev hurting us, but Blackwood has certainly worked out for the Avalanche. So maybe, I don't know, it seems like a great potential opportunity for a deal between our teams.
Hey, you know what? Georgiev helped you guys get Michael Misa. So I don't know what the heck you're complaining about. All right. But let's go ahead and do this, because I don't really have any more trades that already happened to talk about. Go ahead and roll into what I think your minor. Oh, what am I talking about? I'm getting ahead of yourself. What was your minor trade? What happened?
Yes, sorry, I took us away there. I went out of order mentioning that I had a minor trade, and then went back and actually talked about yours. So that is my bad for putting us in a blender there. But the Sharks did have a minor trade and actually paid the Carolina Hurricanes to take a player off our hands. That would be defenseman Kyle Masters. I believe he's still technically in the ECHL currently, but he was a 2026 fourth rounder. We paid Carolina a 2026 fourth rounder, and in exchange got a 2027 fifth. So downgrading a pick, kicking it out a year, and giving up a defenseman. Why in the world would you do this, you might ask? What is the meaning of this? I asked the same question at first, where I was just like, this has got to be mixed up with the picks, right? But no, it is accurate, because upon digging deeper, the Sharks must comply with the NHL rule to have a maximum of 50 players under contract across their entire organization. So with players like Misa set to stay with the Sharks for the remainder of the season, Chernyshov making the step up, Bregenda's now playing really full-time minutes NHL instead of the AHL, because he would be subject to waivers. So with those type of players, especially Misa and Chernyshov, that are counting against the 50 total contracts, the Sharks needed to open up a slot And that also was indicative of the bigger trade that happened, where I think from here on out, the Sharks have to at least send out as many contracts as they bring in just to keep breaking even at that 50 maximum line.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, the Sharks are already crowded at certain areas here. Obviously, they've had injuries happening this year where they've had to bring up prospects. The problem for the Sharks is when they bring up these prospects, they've actually been playing really well. And so now it's creating log jams. So if they are wanting to add at the deadline here, that's why I said, they're buyers and sellers. Just as you said, they need to add these contracts and players that they want, but in turn, they'll have to get rid of some.
Certainly so. And it is a good problem to have, right? You want to see these prospects getting playing time, and not just because you're handing it to them and losing games because of it, but because they're earning it. They're claiming it for themselves. They're winning, proving that this rebuild is ahead of schedule. And yes, Macklin Celebrini is still carrying this team, but every bright, shining night from a prospect, a young player, just is a glimpse at the future and what's to come. And you want to keep them here, keep them getting that NHL experience so that they build to that point where they are star players in the future. But Corey, anything you'd like to say before we talk about the much bigger trade that the Sharks have swung in the past week?
Only that I'm mad at the fact that this was a player that I really wanted the Avalanche to pursue. And after seeing the price tag, I really wish the Avalanche could have pursued. But, if anything, I am happy that he went to the Sharks and that he didn't go to somebody within the Central Division either. But I want everybody to know I very much plan to talk about this player, but I don't get to anymore because he is now a San Jose Shark. But I guess, if anything, I am at least happy that he went to the Sharks.
Then well, I appreciate that. Thank you, my friend. But how about this? I know you wanted to talk about him. I know you wanted him to come to the Avalanche. Tell me and tell everyone why the Sharks are big winners with this trade, and I can throw out some more numbers afterward as well.
Because Kiefer Sherwood is an all-around solid depth player. Literally, if you looked at the picture of depth player in the hockey dictionary, Kiefer Sherwood is what shows up. He leads the NHL in hits. Everybody who describes him says he hits everything that moves, and that is true. He is massively tenacious, super physical and aggressive, a fast player, and has an excellent scoring touch. He's great on both sides of the puck. He's a defensively responsible player, and then if you give him the opportunity to score, he has a high probability of putting the puck away. He is a solid bottom six player. If you needed him to play up, he could. But overall, he's exactly what you want to add when your aspirations as a team are to be bigger and more physical.
Absolutely. And that is a type that Grier has shown he has. Throughout this rebuild and in the process, if you've looked back over the last couple of years, he has looked to acquire size. A Stepchuk, for example, size at center. Again, I've been bringing it up how each week that deal with Zetterlund is looking a bit better with how a Stepchuk is playing. But also, Vinny Desharnais, Orlov plays super big. Ryan Reeves, for crying out loud, right? A lot of big players that have been brought in under Mike Grier and what he wants this team to be. Igor Chernyshov, that power forward, that player who's like Val Nichushkin, who's going to be big and physical but still have offensive talent. That is what he wants this team to be and have that identity so that guys like Misa, Macklin, Will Smith, they can go out there and shine and be the stars. And then you roll out some bruising bottom six lines, have incredible depth and physicality that teams don't enjoy playing against. He's trying to make this team heavier and make it so that they, the way I see it, so they can finally beat Vegas. Because what is Vegas? Big and heavy and fast and just a pain in our ass. So how do you become the best? You got to beat the best. And that's the way it's been in the Pacific. They've had our number, but I think this is a good recipe over time to get to that point. And I mean, Sherwood would make all 32 teams better. He is perfect on the third line. And what you said, Corey, led the league in hits last year. So you know me, I love my checking. It's like my favorite part of the game of hockey. You know I'm extremely happy about this acquisition, especially since he's a right-handed shot and could play on the right wing. Yes, he's perfect on the third line, probably a middle six player, but you're telling me if he needed to, he would be on Macklин's wing. You have a right and a left shot right there. That sounds great in a pinch.
All for $1.5 million. An absolutely amazing contract. That's why I wanted him more than anything. That's a cheap price tag for the amount of value that he brings.
Point. It is $1.5 million this season. That is my concern with this trade is what comes next year. The trade value, yes, the price was cheap. 2 second-round picks and an undrafted defenseman in Cole Clayton, who's 25. So the defenseman's just a throwaway piece for the contracts to work out, like I mentioned before. But 2 second-round picks, that's nothing to sneeze at for a rental, right? So we want to make sure that we get him extended here, and then it becomes a slam dunk deal that was made by Mike Grier. Everyone thought that he was going to fetch at least a first-round pick, I feel like, Corey. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, that is absolutely what I thought it was going to cost. So I'm impressed that Mike Grier got it done for less than that.
Right. And so the Sharks still have 3 first-round picks in the next 2 years because they still hold the Oilers one in the upcoming draft. So they still have plenty of their best capital available to them for more moves and plenty of cap space next year that I don't want us to overpay for him, Corey. And I'm really struggling with guys I like, even though they're in depth roles and with the changing NHL. It's hard for me to figure out a number that I think is a reasonable deal for what Sherwood provides.
It's tough, especially with the cap going up. And I mean, by no means is this an educated guess, but I would see somebody like Kiefer Sherwood in the $4 to $5 million range, especially with the fact that, he's hitting perhaps a career high in goals this year, which of course always happens in a contract year. But you look at his history, and that hasn't always been the case. But he does have, again, a lot of value off the puck as well. So, I mean, I think for what he brings to be a solid third liner, possible top 6 guy, if you need him to be, I think $4 to $5 million, $4.5 million would be a reasonable cap hit. So that's probably why I'm not the GM.
Well, I was going to say 4.5x6 was the number that was coming to my head. So,
all right. So we're on the same wavelength.
6 years, $4.5 million. So he'd be 36. Maybe it's a little bit longer. You try to lock him up to get the per year value cheaper or vice versa. Right. But certainly a player I want to see extended. For Sharks fans, this is not a player we should expect to see on the ice immediately here or soon. When the Vancouver coaching staff before the trade, I want to say it was a couple days before, had estimated he was still 1 to 3 weeks from returning. So there's a chance that he could be back in the Sharks' final 1 or 2 games before this mini Olympic break. But it's more likely that we'll see his first on-ice action in teal when everyone returns from Italy. Nonetheless, though, a phenomenal trade for the Sharks. A gritty player. It's improving that third line and improving that depth. I mean, the fourth line is figured out. It is such a culture line for the Sharks right now. You've got the top line who could finally be healthy. I'd like to see if they do put Chernyshov with Smith and Celebrini consistently. Your second line for weeks has been Toffoli, Eklund, and Wenberg. So the third line has had the most fluctuation, I feel like. Ironically, the top line and the third line, and this is going to cement a piece on that. So the Sharks roster, like you said, Corey, really starting to come together where you can see consistency late on and for the rest of the season and have a good sense of what pieces the Sharks might move.
Yes, absolutely. And as we wrap up this part to move on into our next trade, Alex Wenberg was also a trade target, but then the Sharks extended him. I want all your players, Dom. Just give me your team. Give us Macklin, Celebrini. No, I'm kidding. That would never happen in a million years. But that's funny. Anyways, anything else you wanted to add about Kiefer Sherwood here as we keep it rolling here? Because we got some targets to get through.
Yeah, I'll keep it quick. Just welcome to San Jose, Kiefer. We're really glad to have you here repping the teal. And Nick Leddy, just when we're talking about moves and what the Sharks have to do. Just wanted to say that the only other thing is that he was waived as well as part of this roster movements this week with the trade and everything else going on. So he did clear waivers and has been assigned to the Barracuda. So that's one of the Sharks defensemen who's a UFA that I might bring up later, who is not currently playing with the NHL club. But Corey, I know you've got a lot of players, and I'm excited to see what your thoughts are about who the Avalanche could target, because they're clearly going to try to get better, but I have no clue who it would be. So you're going to be enlightening me as well.
Well, your guess is as good as mine. I'm throwing shit at a wall and seeing what sticks. No, these do have some basis. I'm not just, being like, this player would be fun. I do have some reason that I am picking the players that I do. And, just as a precursor, there are many players that the Avalanche could target, should target. These are just the ones that I kind of felt like were important to highlight here. So just wanted to make that known. Anyway, your first could player, could Artemi Panarin. This is the big one, to say the least, the obvious one, the one you are likely seeing in articles, and if you haven't, you're going to hear about it now. This will also likely be the longest discussion. I'll try to keep the rest of the trade discussions more compact and more like the one that we had about Ilya Solovyov, but there is a lot to unpack here. First is there's actually a bit of history between the Avalanche and Artemi Panarin, or Breadman as he's known. Back when he became a free agent most recently in 2019, the Avalanche offered him a 4-year by $13 million contract before they extended McKinnon to $12.6 a year, before a lot happened with this team. Even with the salary cap rising, $13 million a year is barely a number heard now. In short, needless to say, I'm grateful this signing didn't happen, because it could have severely hampered the Avalanche's ability to capture a Stanley Cup. But Panarin opted for less money but longer term with the New York Rangers, where he has been their top scorer every single year since he's arrived. However, the Avalanche are now, once again, heavily linked to Breadman as one of the top suitors. The New York Rangers have announced a retool and have decided they won't extend their top scorer, whose contract is up at the end of the season. While the man is 34, which I was surprised to find out, I didn't know he was that old, I don't know if this is the best decision by New York, but that isn't the point here. But the prospect of stealing another team's top scorer is tantalizing, and is not the first top scorer we'll talk about today. Panarin has a lot of agency and control. He has a full no-move clause, meaning he won't go anywhere that he doesn't want to, meaning the Rangers can't necessarily demand a massive package in return for him either, but they still don't want him going for nothing. I've had a lot of disgruntlement with this trade idea ever since it was floated, but for one, Panarin's cap hit is still over $11.6 million. Obviously, there is no way that the Avalanche would take that whole cap on, but even at 50% retained, money still needs to go out the door, which means losing another player like Ross Colton. Or you get a third team involved to take more cap, but in turn lose more of the limited assets you barely have if you're Colorado. Then you could be left with little to fill out other areas of the roster that needed to be addressed. Panarin is also a top 6 winger. However, the Avalanche already have a well-rounded top 6. It is a little beat up at the moment, but when fully healthy, Panarin is down on the third line with the unlikely chance to play alongside Nathan McKinnon. Don't get me wrong, Panarin is an incredibly talented player, obviously, but I don't know if playing him down the lineup while providing the wings of the Avalanche with incredible depth puts him at the best position to succeed. Not only that, but Panarin is notoriously a ghost in the playoffs, so they say in New York. But looking at his numbers, he's been up and down. He did not play in last year's playoffs, and the reason why is absolutely eluding me at this moment, and I could not find out why he didn't play. But aside from the 2022-23 playoffs, he's been at nearly a point per game in most postseasons. Where was it? And posted great numbers in the last extended run the Rangers had, so perhaps being with Colorado could boost him further. To wrap up, as I've already gone long enough, there are always positive and negative to every trade. For me, the negatives outweigh the positives here. I feel Panarin, even if the Avalanche got him, would be a pure rental, and you'd be giving up too much to get him.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think the Avalanche are a good match for Panarin. I do think he is a high end rental or a team that is climbing and still has the cap space to potentially sign him in the years to come and extend him. And I just don't think that's really in the Avalanche's cards. With what the Avalanche have, like you said, their top six is pretty well filled out. Yes, there's injuries, but that I feel like Panarin is too good to be stashed on a third line and too expensive for the Avalanche to want to do that, like you said.
Yeah, or it forces someone else down. Regardless, I just don't see him being on the top line. Even if he is in the top 6 on the second line, that means, forcing somebody like Val Nichushkin or Artturi Lehkonen down, which both of those guys can play down the lineup. It's been shown that they have the skill set for that. But yeah, that's my biggest problem is just the cost that I anticipate it, costing to get him, and then just it only being a rental, even if the Avalanche lift the cup at the end of the season, which is always what you want, obviously. But no, it's just not worth it for me.
And it'd be interesting to see when you mentioned getting a third team involved. This would be one of the last opportunities to do that, if I recall, because with the updated CBA that's upcoming, I believe there's no more using a third team or filtering it through for additional retention, right?
I do not
So
remember that aspect of the CBA. I know there's a lot of different things.
I think there's something with the limited changes there where a team can't just be a filter through for money on a contract, if I recall. But I could be misremembering, so I don't want to stick on that for too long. But either way, that type of prospect is, I feel like, becoming less likely in the game, especially with the salary cap going up and players also demanding more money. It's less teams are going to want to be involved in that type of money split, and the whole league is just at a higher degree of parity, so there's less places that you can just dump a bad contract on either. So even if the Avalanche had to send money out, I don't know if there's anyone you really like to send out as part of getting Panarin.
Yeah, exactly. And that's my biggest issue too, is it's like you don't really want to subtract right now if you're this Avalanche team. You only want to be adding. And, it'd be tough to see somebody like a Ross Colton go because you want those kind of gritty, grinding players for those long playoff runs. They're what win you the game. They're the ones who go out there and wear down, other top lines and create those opportunities for your top line to then come out there and score. So you need guys like him. And, Panarin is not necessarily a replacement for that, even if, he has more of a scoring touch. If he's a better overall player, he just doesn't, at least to my understanding, have that physical element to his game.
Well, and it's funny you mentioned that, and I know we're still again only on the first could, so I don't want to get us stuck here for too long. But with the bit of a logjam you mentioned before now for the Sharks, there are some physical candidates for bottom six roles that do still have the ability to play up or have that scoring touch here and there that would certainly be much cheaper for the Avalanche. I know I'm coming back to the Sharks yet again. Big surprise, but I think what you need as a team, there are better, cheaper options out there than what you risk to take on a big name like Panarin.
Yes, 100%, 100 million billion percent. And pretty much everybody else that we'll have talking about here is fitting that exact mold. Now, Tom, do you have trade targets for the Sharks per se, or am I just rolling right along here?
So I split a few things out into Sharks potentially on the move out and potential trade targets. With the depth on the offensive side, a lot of the Sharks trade targets are going to be defensemen, specifically younger defensemen, and on the right hand side, preferably. So I feel like now maybe it is a better time to just go through more so rather than a target. Is this now a good time to list some of those players the Sharks have who could be on their way out the door?
Yeah, sure. I think that would be great. It sounds kind of like a rapid fire thing, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, exactly. And it's all about forwards here. those guys who are playing third or fourth line minutes typically. Sure, Warsofsky has mixed up the lines, but Jeff Skinner, with his injuries and such, has he done enough in his time with the team to actually have a trade market? He has a no trade clause that goes through the end of January, but there will still be that 5-day period before the Olympics that he could be traded. However, it's a limited 8-team clause until he reaches free agency. So I'm guessing those are only going to be good teams, and the Avalanche would be one of those. So that's why I throw his name out there. Adam Gaudette certainly has some goal scoring upside and has physicality, grit, but with the addition of Sherwood, that's a better version of Gaudette, I think. And Gaudette has spent more time, has played up a little bit more on the higher lines, but he's also been scratched at times. So I don't know if I personally want the Sharks to sacrifice that depth with the rolling injuries we've been dealing with, but that might be the cost of doing business and a relatively cheap player that the Avalanche could go after. Philip Kirsch, his value to the year had cooled down a little bit as he had rolled down the lines. So that's a player that could be pushed out the door here soon for San Jose. And finally, Ty Dellandrea, the right attitude, great in the faceoff circle, but once again, injury opening up more playing time for young talent in San Jose, and the acquisition of Sherwood, who has that same grit except for bigger and better. Maybe Dellandrea gets pushed out of a roster spot. So those are all some guys that the Sharks have that are going to be free agents in the not too distant future, if not this upcoming offseason, and have been pushed out somewhat by some of the Sharks acquisitions and the call-ups, who have really cemented a spot as prospects that we want to see them in the NHL moving forward. So, Corey, I don't know if any of those players are of interest to you in either the could or should categories, but those are a few names that the Sharks are probably going to be sending out the door that could find the right home be in Colorado and get a chance at a cup.
Strangely, none that I really looked at. However, with the history of business that the Sharks and the Avalanche have conducted over these past couple of years, it definitely would not surprise me if Chris MacFarland is ringing GM Mike Grier's phone here, poking and prodding at some guys who might be available, especially at those, cap friendly hits prices, however you would like to say it.
Certainly, yeah, because taking a quick look here, Dellandrea, I know he's on IR, but if we run through these, Skinner's at $3 million, so he's the most expensive of the bunch, and honestly, in my opinion, the least valuable. So that's kind of funny to me. Gaudette's $2 million a year. He does have an extra year on his contract, so that's what makes him interesting. Is it's not just a rental potentially. Dellandrea is at 1.3 is an RFA, and so is Kurashev 1.2 in an RFA, which makes them have incentive for teams because they'll be team controlled next year.
Absolutely. Well, any other guys that you want to talk about who you think are on the way out? Otherwise, I will move on to the first should of our trade targets here.
Oh, I don't know if you're going to possibly be targeting any Sharks defensemen later. So if you are, how about we just save that just in case? Because with so many defensemen who are in a contract year for the Sharks, some of them are going out the door, and that could be an extended conversation depending on who is the most valuable. So how about we move to your next one, and we'll save that one for later if it fits in at a good time.
Certainly can. Here's your first should. Ryan O'Reilly. I am unsure if I have been as vocal on this podcast as I've been in my everyday life, but Ryan O'Reilly, apart from a pipe dream never going to happen, Sidney Crosby, is the player I want the Avalanche to target the most above any other trade target. The Avalanche are missing Charlie Coyle this year. His cap hit was rough, but he has 30 points in 49 games this year, including 10 goals, whereas Jack Drury, while great, only has half that amount and about the same number of games with only 7 goals. I will die on the hill, although I likely don't have to, that Jack Drury is a perfect fourth-line center flanked by Logan O'Connor and Parker Kelly. Obviously, the Avalanche still have gotten plenty of depth contributions this year, but they can be better. Ryan O'Reilly is an upgrade on both Drury and Coyle, and is on an obscenely team-friendly cap hit of $4.5 million. He is almost at a point per game this season and is about to hit 20 goals. He is a defensive two-way stalwart and a consistently reliable playoff performer. A Conn Smythe trophy is all the proof you need. He is a demon in the face-off dot and a team-first kind of guy. He would cost a first-rounder, at least in my mind, in a seller's market easily, but it would absolutely be worth it to the rebuilding Predators. Putting past transgressions aside, he would perfectly round out this team's center depth. And if his most recent game against the Avs doesn't tell you exactly why he should be a part of this team, I don't know what will.
Yeah, I mean, Ryan O'Reilly is such a big name. I feel like for hockey fans, he's been around the league, he's experienced, and he's a good player. He has that playoff experience that is so sought after. So, as an acquisition, a guy who is, like you said, I think perfect for the third line, so that Drury could play in his natural position on the fourth line. Because I think we even said it back then when the trades initially happened for the Avalanche in the offseason. Drury is a great, or last season even, great for their fourth line center. Playing up at the third line maybe is a little bit ambitious, but he's really, really good on the fourth line. So Ryan O'Reilly is the perfect fit for your third line center. I could not agree more.
That is my exact thought. So Ryan O'Reilly, if you're asking me who is top of my list, it is him. Now, on to our next good player, Jared McCann.
Hooray!
This is a name some of you may know from playoff series past. Jared McCann is a versatile player who can swap to both center and wing and has, like Panarin, been Seattle's best player since he's arrived. He's been a bit below a point per game this year, but has been reliable for between 50 and 70 points since he arrived in Seattle. He would provide absolutely excellent depth to an already deep Colorado team, can play up the lineup if need be, and grind down low if asked. He also has a very reasonable cap hit for the skill set he brings, but the Avalanche would still have to shift some assets and players. There are a couple knocks against McCann, however. He's only played in 24 games this season and has only played in a full 82 games once in his entire career. The injury history is there and very apparent. He also doesn't have much of a playoff track record to speak of, as his opponents in the dance his opportunities in the dance have been short and limited, shall we say. He will also be highly sought after by many organizations, and that's banking on if Seattle even wants to trade him while they're currently flirting with a playoff spot.
Yeah, I think that's your bigger issue, is whether or not Seattle wants to trade him. And I think that's the same issue you ran into with, or a lot of teams ran into, who were targeting Alex Wenberg, where with the Sharks being competitive, maybe he would have been on the block if they weren't competitive, and teams who were pushing for the playoffs could make that move. I think McCann is going to be that similar price range, similar style of player who might be retained by Seattle. Does look like a legitimate playoff team potentially here this year with how weak the West and the Pacific specifically is.
Yeah, we'll see, because they've fallen out of it now. No, they're not in a wild card spot anymore.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah, what with Anaheim pushing up and winning 4 straight again, refining themselves a little bit. I feel like it's been ebbs and flows between those teams. The games in hand have fluctuated, and it's all back to even, but they're still just 2 points behind a 3-way tie of the California teams at 53 points, and they've played 1 fewer game, so they're right there neck and neck with all 3 of us.
We'll see. I don't necessarily believe in them. I think they're just, having an advantage in a weak division this year, to be honest. But
and
we'll
you might be right. They've lost 4 straight. They're currently up against the Islanders 3-1 as we speak, and they had a tough stretch on the road, so they lost 3 of those 4 straight were on the road. Now they get to play like 6 straight at home. So we'll see if that's what it comes down to, if they're just a streaky team who plays better at home versus on the road.
Perhaps so. Are there any targets you'd like to talk about for the Sharks?
Yeah, so now that the Sharks have secured an improvement on the offensive side and also created a logjam, like you said, Corey, and like I went through really the big deal and what the Sharks need is on defense. All of our UFA and RFA defensemen our biggest issue is needing defense, young defense, right-handed defense. So I was just going to rapid fire through a couple names that I don't think are as likely, but I would want, and it's pretty obvious why.
Yeah.
And then maybe save. I'm not sure how much more you have.
I have 1, 2, 3, 4 more targets for the Avalanche.
Okay, then I'll just go through these,
but
one at a time,
nothing in depth, obviously. Brief for each one here, just for time's sake.
Okay, so I'll do the same then and just go through one at a time and be brief. I think I got like 6 total, but 2 of them go together, so because they're on the same team. So, anyways, the first one, the target I want that is completely and totally unrealistic is Simon Nemec from New Jersey. Because when you talk about history, we have a history of doing deals with New Jersey. New Jersey wants to find a way to get all the Hughes together and everything like that. So if they saw the opportunity to get Quinn Hughes, that would mean not being able to pay their young up-and-coming defenseman in Simon Nemec. And let's be real, they're unlikely to part with him, but based on his age, his skill level, he is like the perfect player as a Sharks fan that I would love to have on this team, even though I know it's unrealistic. And so I already said my piece on Dougie Hamilton last week and his offseason denying of any trade to the Sharks, but obviously that's probably the more realistic target on New Jersey that the Sharks could still potentially end up with here before season's end.
Yeah, definitely not a bad thought there. I know that Simon Nemec was a possible, going back the other way for a Quinn Hughes trade. So that makes you wonder, could he be, someone that they send back the other way for a different trade? But Simon Nemec would definitely be, in my mind, costly. And I don't think that New Jersey is necessarily hunting, picks and prospects right now. They want NHL ready players. So it's about who would you be willing to give up who they deem as equal value to that.
Yeah, certainly a pipe dream from my standpoint, because I don't think the Sharks, like you're saying, have the right assets to go after him. And it would be extremely costly, like you said. So while it's not likely, that's in a perfect world what I would go after.
Always. And if everybody had a perfect world, no team would ever win. Here's your next should for the Avalanche. Nazem Kadri. That's a name I think you all are familiar with, isn't it? Not too much needs to be said here. You know who this is. You know what he's done. Another team's top scorer. Man, why is everyone here a top scorer? I hope we can get one of these guys. Nazem Kadri cemented himself in Colorado Avalanche lore forever when he hoisted Lord Stanley over his head. Unfortunately, Colorado couldn't afford the $7 million price tag he got from Calgary, and that may be the biggest limiting factor. That and demand leading to what will likely be a very competitive trade package for his services. The Flames are out and are very obviously sellers going into the various deadlines, but it's who they are going to be willing to part with is the massive question. Other Flames, such as Blake Coleman, are optioned for the Avs as well, but I think there are very few Avs fans who wouldn't be elated by this reunion with Kadri. The Avs could dominate every matchup. However, one thing I will say when it comes to Kadri is while a trade could in theory happen, what he has said was he's been satisfied and happy with being in Calgary and being with the Flames. So that being said, he said that he isn't in a hurry to get a trade done or anything like that, but he wants to do, and neither is the Flames. The Flames aren't eager to get him out the door, but he said he wants to do what's right by the team. And so with that bearing that in mind, that could mean that, he gets traded to give the team picks and prospects or players that they can use. So if that's what's best for the team, he wants to help them do that. But we don't really know if he'll even get moved this year. Of course, everybody wants a Nazem Kadri on their team. Everybody's seen what Nazem Kadri can do, especially in the playoffs. The dude is an absolute gamer by any stretch of the imagination. But it would be nice. I think it is definitely a bit more of a pipe dream for the Avalanche, but it is not something that is entirely out of the realm of possibility, but it is definitely something I want the Avalanche to hopefully take a serious look at if they're able to do it. Oh my God, finally! Thank you, God! That's crime and Netley! Ah!
I take it something good happened.
With 3:39 remaining in the third period, the most clutch man on the Colorado Avalanche strikes again. Arturi Lehkonen nets it past Lukáš Dostal, who has had himself the game of his life. Oh my God, I love you, Arturi. And he was assisted by Big Cock Brock.
Well, Dostal.
Oh my God. Yes, Tom?
Yeah, glad to hear that, honestly. Dostal playing well again. It makes sense, and that would explain why the Ducks have gotten themselves back into it, was all I was going to say there. But glad to hear that you guys got that goal, because that should give you the lead currently, correct? It was cutting in and out there on my end a little bit.
Tied the game.
Oh, shit.
The Avalanche have been down since the middle of the second period.
Damn. Well, glad to hear it then even more that you guys are still in this thing and get to maybe get some free hockey.
I hope we don't, in the prospect of I hope we just score and end this thing.
Yes, because I also don't need Anaheim getting a point for the record. So I'm with you. But, you know, free hockey, it's a good consolation prize.
Exactly, I guess. Oh, my Lord Almighty. Now,
but for Kadri,
sorry, yes, Kadri.
I think every team wants Kadri. I think it's a scenario with what you're saying. If he wants to do right by the team, what doing right by the team might mean is staying out the year, because they need to sell tickets. They need to sell jerseys. He is a leader in their room, and if he can help them build their culture for the future, they might want to hold on to that until the offseason when they can figure out the replacement and the strategy moving forward a bit. So I do wonder if what you're saying there about those comments indicate that he's okay with playing out the year and reevaluating in the offseason together with the team.
Yeah. And I mean, that very much could be a possibility. That very much could be what they're going for. And we'll just have to kind of wait and see here. You know, it might not be a move that happens immediately before the Olympics. This definitely might be more of a March trade deadline move. And I think we definitely will be seeing some things really start to fall as we approach February 4th. It would surprise me a lot if the Avalanche didn't at least have one semi-major to major move before the Olympic trade freeze here, especially with already getting rid of Ilya Solovyov. So again, it's simply one of those things where, you know, we'll write about it, we'll talk about it all we want, but it's ultimately something that we have to wait and see. We don't know what's being discussed in those back rooms. We don't know what the general managers are talking about, what the pro scouting team is kind of looking at here, or what the Avalanche feel like they can do with, unfortunately, now some limited assets. They do, and it's very much likely going out the door here. They do have their 2028 first round pick. Let me check myself before I wreck myself here. Make sure I'm correct. I do believe they already traded their 2027 first rounder. No, they did not. Okay, so they do in fact have their 2027 first round pick. So Avs fans, we don't need it right now. Be fully unbelievably prepared for that pick to be headed out the door. So, but again, if it's for a player like Ryan O'Reilly, it'll absolutely be worth it. So just be prepared for that.
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
That was the most insane save I've ever witnessed in my life. I'm sorry, everybody.
I wish I could see it.
I know I've been tripping over my words a lot tonight, but it's because I have been somewhat dialed in on this Avs game as well while we've been discussing, because oh my God, this has been insane. Hold on, let's see the replay on this. The puck hops behind Scott Wedgwood, gets to the goal line. He saves it with a stick, assisted by who is that there? Victor Olofsson. It definitely does not cross, but boy, oh boy, if something hadn't been done, it certainly would have. And I mean, we're approaching the final minute of the game here. The Ducks have made a big push, so good for Scott to have the wherewithal to make that save. Oh my God, this is giving me heart palpitations. I better try and get through these next couple players and pass it off to you, Tom, so that way I can try and finish this this watch session here, because my fucking goodness, this game is insane. What a tightly contested game.
Yeah, well, why don't you take some time, take a look at that, because I can go through my next the next possible defensive targets for the Sharks.
Yeah. Do that right now as I get through the final minute or so of this game.
Yeah, you got it. And there's a few of them, and they all happen to be on the same team, so I just kind of group them together and go through it reasonably quickly here. And you know what team has what the Sharks need and is simultaneously on the come up? It's the Buffalo Sabres. They have a logjam on the defensive side. They have been just clearly acquiring and just developing really good right-handed defensemen in particular on their team, or at least being the ability to play on the right-hand side as a left shot. When you look at their captain, Rasmus Dahlin, Owen Power as well. I mean, and then, of course, the obvious one that's been in rumors with the Sharks for years is Bo Byram. And I know he plays on the left-hand side, but I'm also open to it because he would be instantly like the best defenseman that the Sharks have. So that's just the obvious one. But also, I kind of like some of our right-hand defensemen who are going to be UFAs. So I kind of want us to keep a Timothy Liljegren. I kind of like Desharnais' size and the way he plays. I definitely really like John Klingberg and what he has been able to provide and revive his career. When healthy is, of course, the caveat. So, it's tough for me looking at this Sharks team, knowing our defense needs to get better, but I'm not sure which one guy on that right-hand side I want to part with out of all of them. They each have their values and their pitfalls. But what that has done in the variety of options on the right-hand side the Sharks have actually acquired does make me think Bo Byram on the left-hand side might not be such a bad acquisition anymore. Like the Sharks, yes, they have a lot of left-hand defensemen in the pipeline, but Bo Byram is still a proven thing and better. So I think he is still a target for the Sharks, someone I would like to see them go get. But if they can't, I don't know of the value, but Owen Power is obviously an option if Buffalo does need to move one of their defensemen or looks to at some point. If they like one of their younger guys, the one I really think, though, is maybe not even a trade for the Sharks. I'd be interested to see if this upcoming offseason, if they could possibly go offer sheet Kesselring, who will be an RFA, or if they can get around that, maybe do pull a trade here late in the year. If there is something offensive prospect-wise, they can send Buffalo, since Buffalo's strength is defense, and I feel like they would be looking to improve their offense potentially. I mean, I could be mistaken. I don't see every Buffalo game, but that's there with the strengths and weaknesses of the Sharks and the Buffalo Sabres. I do just feel like there's different potential ways I could foresee a trade happening that benefits both clubs or both franchises.
As somebody who is very experienced with Bowen Byram, he is absolutely somebody that I every day wish was back on the Avs. Sam Malinsky has somewhat filled that void, and I love Sam Malinsky. Sam Malinsky is great. I hope we keep him for a long time. However, Bowen Byram, especially in the Stanley Cup playoffs, where, mind you, he wasn't even 21 yet in 2022, performed some of the best hockey he has ever played in his career. He does not crack under pressure. He can play in those big moments. He can move the puck. He knows how to defend, and he's managed to overcome now the injury history that really used to plague him in the past, which is super great. He dealt with concussions for a number of years while he was on the Avalanche. So it's great to see that he's been really thriving in Buffalo, in a place where, as you said, Dom, very well, that it's overloaded with great defensemen. It is obscene, the blue line talent that the Buffalo Sabres have. So, I mean, I'm glad in that regard, without getting into it, that Buffalo is actually finally succeeding for once. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's why they've had this variety of goaltending as well. Just really quickly, their strength on defense can cover up some of their weakness on goaltending, or it makes it easier to play as a goaltender. I mean, their three of their defensemen are signed through at least the 2030 season, so that leaves these guys. That leaves a Bo Byram. That leaves a Kesselring. That leaves. I mean, he's injured right now, but a Connor Timmins open and available for trade. And maybe they're not the perfect guy that everyone's targeting, but I do think, again, the big thing here is that they're all young. Their top 4 defensemen are all 25 or younger. Kesselring is 26. I don't think they can keep all of them and continue just stacking defensemen. So at some point here, they do need to consider a deal, and why not the Sharks? But Corey, I'm seeing what your next one what could be, and I know it'll spark some emotions, but I also think it's a core conversation we need to have on this podcast in particular.
Yes, our next could on today's show is Mario Ferraro. Mario Ferraro's name has floated around in trade talks for the last couple of years now. To me, I think it's actually unlikely the Sharks trade him. He is to the Sharks what Eric Johnson was to the Avalanche. He saw and stuck with the team through their dark years and deserves to be rewarded with the bright years and playoff success ahead. But the Avalanche are one of the few teams who have an abundance of the coveted right-handed defenseman and lack on the left side. The departure, of Ilya Solovyov signals the Avs will be seeking out a more NHL-ready left-handed D. And Mario may be the one to fit that bill. And if he left a young and up-and-coming playoff team to come to an immediate contender, it might not be all bad. He isn't the best all-around option, but by no means a bad one either. A bit more affordable, but still a bit much for a third pair, which is what the Avs need to shore up.
Yeah, and that's the problem, right, with Mario, and why he's been in conversations for a while is because on a contender, he should be a third pair. On the Sharks, sometimes he's playing top pair. He's been shifted more middle pair lately because he can play heavy minutes. The question is whether or not he should be, because he is a solid defenseman, but at 27, I think we've seen his ceiling. I don't think there's much more of a jump expected in his game from Mario. So he's going to be a consistent guy in what you can get from him, and he's going to make his mistakes with consistency as well. It's going to be the same mistakes. He can try to work him out of his game, but it's just, that's the issue. Because yes, the Sharks would like him. Sharks fans would like him. The problem is how much is it going to cost? Because even though we like him and we want to keep him, the fact is for the Sharks, our defensive core is bad. It has been bad. I like all of these players. I said it earlier, but we need better defense. So it's the hard reality as a Sharks fan that we need to part ways with some of these guys, possibly all of them. Like, I think part of the issue is, if you ask me which one I'd rather have, Mario Ferraro or Tim Liljegren, I'd rather have Liljegren, right? I'd rather have Klingberg, even if it's just he's older, just based on this season and the chemistry with MacLeod and what he's been able to provide on the power play. But that does leave Mario Ferraro the bit of the odd man out in some regard, especially when you think, of course, Dickinson is there. Mook Madulin can play both sides, but he's a left shot. He's already at the NHL level and someone we'd like to think will stay a little bit longer. But the prospects the Sharks have, I mean, Salim Wallenius is that's a double last name there. That is the player in particular.
You guys continue to add to your really name collection.
Right. But he had a great World Juniors. He was complimented by many as like one of, if not the best defensive prospect there from Sweden. And so he got the gold medal. He's only 19. Obviously, I've mentioned Luca Cagnoni before. So there is this crop of left-handed side defensemen. So the price might be the issue, but at least this year he's only $3.25 million. So for a rental, I think that's what he's going to be to somebody. If he gets traded, he's probably going to be a rental, and a team with cap space next year is probably going to overpay for him in free agency.
And, something that you said made me think about, you like the players, and on an individual level, these players might be good. They might perform well, again, on an individual level. But when you put them together in combination, it's just not one that works. So it can be hard for us as fans to want to ever depart with any player. And I mean, I absolutely am attached to fucking every player that comes to the Avalanche. I always learn their name, their number, even call-ups most of the time. I can remember first and last name and number. I know every single Avs player that way. You can ask me for anybody. I can give you that. And sometimes I can even give you historic ones. But, I'm rambling here. What's that all to say is that while we may like the players on the Sharks D core right now, we don't want to see any of them go. Clearly, the combination and not the individual is just not working. Something needs to change here. Guys need to go out, and a new project needs to start. New guys need to come in.
Yeah, definitely. And it is about liking the individual player, because it's not even about his on-ice product. I like his culture for us, right? He's the guy who is going down, blocking shots, missing some teeth. He's got the big hair. He's got that crazy energy that the Sharks have been missing ever since Burns left. He's been the small little supplement that the Sharks can keep and get their fill. But and he's such a good guy. He's such a good leader, right? He wears the A for a reason. It's hard to pay him at this point, or it's hard to justify. If he can take a pay cut, and if he wants to stay in San Jose, and we can find a way to make it work, pay him third pair value, then obviously we'd like to keep him. I think most Sharks fans would agree, but he's been having to play as a second pairing, and he's probably going to get that type of money with the cap going up, even if it's an overpay. So it's a tough one. If you want a left-handed D, please take Nick Leddy. If there's a defenseman that I'm ready just to ship out the door, because I've just never thought he was all that good on this team, it's Nick Leddy. And he's paid like the most out of all of them at like $4 million, who's on the blocker UFA at the end of the year. So that doesn't help matters.
Yeah, that's definitely not somebody who we're gonna. No. I have another left-handed D that I think is much more ideal for the Avs here down the line, but I do have another center possibility before we get to that.
Yeah, absolutely sounds good.
I just wasn't sure if you had any more in your department there.
Oh, sorry. Yes, I completely misunderstood what you were saying there. Yes, I do have a couple more prospects I can go through here quickly. I'll do one here and then one in between your last two, perhaps.
Sure, let's do it.
Okay, so similar to the last one, I'm just going to look at a team, and I'm looking at the New York Rangers, because all cards on the table, a lot of guys, not just Panarin, are going to be available. All right. Well, then here, take a guess. Which one am I going to say? Because I grabbed two names.
Hold on. Let me pull up the trade board. I have it sneaky in the background here, because, of course, got to make sure I'm squared. Where is he? Carson Soucy.
Oh, interesting. So I like the thought. No, that's not who I was thinking, because left-hand D also going to be a free agent at the end of this year. I mean, I wanted us to get Gavrikov before last season. It's not going to happen. Adam Fox is, all the drama and stuff. No, the targets I've seen, there've been a lot of rumblings about Schneider, who is a right-handed D-man but can still play on both sides. He's only 24, getting $2.2 million currently, and will be an RFA at the end of the season. I've heard there's possibility of him getting moved. Same with also Scott Morrow, the 23-year-old right-handed defenseman. He's still on his rookie contract. Those are two guys I would like, because, again, young right-handed D-men, pending RFAs. There have been rumors about potentially being moved. it's just a perfect target with the timeline, right, of what the Sharks are trying to build. And you can have some of these re-sign maybe a couple pieces from this current defensive core, go out and sign a guy like Carson Soucy maybe in the offseason on a 1 or 2 year deal after he goes somewhere at this deadline for a rental. Um, but these younger core defensemen are really what we're trying to acquire and build around in that the younger half 20s age range so they can be playing with the team for a longer time. I've heard and seen good things of Schneider, and he is supposedly someone that they might not be paying or extending here. So trading for his restricted rights is something I think the Sharks could consider, because a retool, and why I target New York is because a retool means they might be more open to certain picks and prospects. So that plays into the Sharks' hands a little bit as well with what assets they can offer for either of those players.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And I mean, New York said there's a fire sale, so you never know who you might end up with.
Or the price, too. If there's a fire sale, they might not be trying to sell everybody, but they also have this general sense of unease in cleaning house. So it doesn't feel like they're going to be charging top dollar for anybody either.
Well, I'm glad that you mentioned New York, because that brings me perfectly into my next should player, Vincent Trocheck. This is a name I haven't seen floated around by any Colorado media outlets, but man, Vinny Trocheck would be absolutely incredible for the Avalanche. As a top 6 center at a reasonable cap hit, although money would need to be moved or retained, Vinny Trocheck on Colorado's third line would be absolutely obscene. 32 points in 37 games this year, and the ability to absolutely blossom in the playoffs. He is an all-around beauty. When people talk about heart and soul players, Vinny Trocheck can absolutely fit that category. Fantastic in the face-off circle, can play on your power play, can play on your play on your penalty kill, two-way center. The Avs should do more than kick tires on the possibility of being able to acquire a player like Trocheck.
Yeah, this right here I think is one of, if you can't get O'Reilly, I think this is a great take here based on saying what he can do and how he is. He is a top 6 center, but I think he is a really good middle 6 center. I think he can adjust and play those third line minutes better than some other players can. And so I think, like when we were talking about Panarin and the adjustment to third line minutes potentially earlier, I think that's more suiting Vinny Trocheck. I think the price will be better for this. So I absolutely love this take on Trocheck as an option for the Avalanche. Even if it is a rental this year, I feel like this is a better value for your dollar rental that you would be doing.
Certainly so. But once again, this is somebody that people want. This is somebody who the market's going to be competitive for. And unfortunately, I don't know if the Avalanche have the assets realistically to actually go and get a Vinny Trocheck, but I hold on to the possibility that Chris MacFarland is much smarter than I am, pretty much seeing the moves that he's made previously. So I'll hold out hope that this is somebody that maybe they can pursue. But again, it's not a name that I've seen, insiders talking about as connected to the Avalanche. But again, they tend to surprise us in fun ways. So we'll see what happens. But Dom, who do you got next?
Well, last thing really quickly is the Rangers are just such a wild card. It's with the fire sale, it's so unclear what they want. So exactly, who knows what the Avalanche as an organization may have that tickles their fancy per se. But no, for the Sharks, the last one I will mention here, and take a guess. It's a right-handed defenseman who's 25 years old. Corey, you want to just throw out a name? Who do you think it is?
I don't fucking know.
Okay, well, he plays for the Dallas Stars. And so I know you'd rather him not be on the Dallas Stars.
Right-handed D on the Dallas Stars. Oh, you're going off the board here. I like it.
I think it would be very intriguing to go after Niels Lundqvist.
Ooh.
Lundqvist. 25-year-old right-hand defenseman. Fits perfectly again with the Sharks' timeline and needs. He'll be an RFA for Dallas next year, which means team control for whoever employs him at the time. And I say whoever because they also have to pay Jason Robertson. That's going to cost a pretty penny. They have $16
I think Jason
million
Robertson's
of cap
on
space
his
for
way
next
out.
year. Well, possibly. And maybe then the Sharks go after Jason Robertson and get him instead and just cook it on offense and just say, here, we're going to start shifting our second line down to be third line, like put Toffoli on the third line and put Robertson on the second line. Anyways, I'm getting distracted here. Point is that Dallas can't pay everyone. They have only, I want to say from Puckpedia, like 23 out of the 50 contracts, right, between their AHL and NHL clubs, right, all their contracts. They only have 23 guys signed, I think it is, or 27, but only 16 million of cap space for next year. So they don't have a ton of flexibility. They aren't able to pay everybody. If the Sharks can, I think it would be an interesting one to, again, consider trading now so you have the inside track, you have the RFA rights, knowing you could potentially recoup investment if there was an offer sheet, but improve defense, have team control in negotiating that next deal, potentially a bridge deal before you pay him big after MacLeod and Will contracts have kicked in. I don't know. I see potential here, someone that maybe is a little off the radar. For better or worse, the Sharks do also have a bit of history dealing with Dallas, with players having gone back and forth. If we look over the past year, 2 years with some of Mike Grier's moves, think about how Granlund went to Dallas, for example, with Cody Ceci. So I don't know. Maybe it's out there, but if Dallas does try to keep Robertson, then I think that opens up the door for Lundqvist. And even in general, I think Dallas being a team that is trying to push for a cup and has to catch up to Colorado somehow, since Dallas has really, really fallen off here recently. I think he's the type of player that the Sharks just might be able to buy off of Dallas, either if it does come to free agency, or, like I said, realistically try to offer up a good trade package based on what prospects and even depth pieces the Sharks have. Like, are the Stars a type of team who would be interested in some more experience in their depth potentially? Or are they someone who's like, okay, we might need to retool a little bit so we still get the best out of these upcoming Jake Ottinger years? Maybe we do want to get a little younger and they want some prospects in return on the offensive side.
Listen, Dom, I want your team to improve however they can. That means a lot to me. However, I don't want you in any capacity, you or your team, to assist the Dallas Stars in any type of way at all. I hate that team, and I want them to have nothing but sorrow and misery. Don't help them free up cap space to sign Jason Robertson. That's stupid. Anyway.
Well, no, see, that's the thing, is it doesn't free up cap space.
Don't give them depth either. That's why they're losing. They have shitty depth. Don't give them that.
Yes. Right. Well, no, that's the thing, is I don't think we're giving them anything. And we're giving them stuff that would be cast-offs from the Sharks, okay? So I'm saying we're picking their pocket a little bit. Like, they have Thomas Harley, Esa Lindell, and Miro Heiskanen. It's going to be a similar situation to Buffalo, that they really keep everybody? Do they really pay everybody? They like this Leon Bichel kid, right? He did well in the playoffs for him last year. So are they the type of team that could be looking to deal, and maybe the Sharks take on a bloated offensive contract as well? Maybe it all works out. Maybe it's just this season thing, right? I'm not saying I'm trying to help the Dallas Stars, right? I'm not here trying to help the Dallas Stars. I'm trying to help the San Jose Sharks, and I think Niels Lundqvist could do that, and the price could be favorable for the Sharks, or even if it's not favorable as an Avalanche fan, it helps the Sharks get a good player based on what assets we have available to offer.
Okay, I understand.
You try to pick my pocket, I can try to pick
Dallas's
pocket.
Well,
yeah, I'm done trying to pick the Avs pocket. I want the Avs, the players on the Avs I like. I want to stay in to win a cup. Honestly, we're not going to get Josh Manson. If there's one Avalanche player I want right now that's not a former Shark, it's Josh Manson. So it's obvious, like, there's nobody on the Avs that I would want I'm actually going to get. So I'm just going to go pick the pocket of your rival instead and hope it works out in the end and helps you net positive in the long run.
Hopefully. Well, with you talking about D, I do have one more D on this list. I was a little less D favorable for this list, I'm realizing now, but I do have in my mind, I think, the most realistic left-handed D trade target for the Avalanche here. And that's our final could player, which is Logan Stanley. Logan Stanley may be more what the Avalanche have in mind for a third pairing 7th D going into this long playoff run. In a league where size is still coveted, a 6'7", 230-pound Logan Stanley would be ideal for the Avs, and he only costs $1.25 million on an expiring deal. He could be a cheap replacement for Brent Burns if he retires after this season and leaves money to re-sign Sam Malinsky. So not only are you bolstering your blue line now, but helping ensure it for the future. He is also having a career year in scoring, having already eclipsed all his previous point totals. He has been developed by a floundering Jets team and would be ideal for the taking by the Avalanche.
So really quickly, funnily enough, I originally had Logan Stanley on my list as well.
I think Logan Stanley is a big one for people.
He fits your team better. I think he fits your team better. I think his size and only costing $1.25 million, I think he's going to end up on a true cup contender. And maybe that's someone that the Sharks try with mixing up next year, signing in the offseason if with free agency. It's another one of those ones, kind of like how we picked up Desharnais, right?
Right.
That type of guy.
And I mean, here's hoping so, but ultimately the fact of the matter is, you have all these players, and a lot of these guys are likely to be traded, but only one team gets them. Just like the Stanley Cup. Only one team wins the Stanley Cup at the end of the day. Only one team ends up with the player that, 5 teams want. All these guys want this player, but there's no guarantee that you actually get this player. It's fun to speculate, but, hockey is a business, and every team wants to, at least the ones that are competitive, want to make their team better. They want to make themselves, in their eyes, the most competitive. So, those picks and those tradings, that competitiveness is what puts asses in seats, what brings in the money. So, yeah, I don't want to go on too long of a tangent here, but that's just kind of my final thoughts.
Certainly so. I agree. And I mean, we've even seen this. A lot of people were talking about Wenberg. We signed him, right? We extended him. So players that everybody wants, sometimes the team who has them ends up re-signing them.
And I mean, that's what happened going into this, free agency class. It was one of the most stacked free agency classes of all time. However, every single player that everybody was like, oh, where could this star player end up? They all re-signed. Unfortunately, the NHL is not like the NBA or other sports leagues where you see big name star players on the move all the time. NHL players usually are pretty happy with where they're at. It's pretty rare that they're leaving on their own, especially nowadays. So, yeah, everybody just got resigned.
Fortunate or unfortunate? As a fan, I do like team loyalty. I like being able to get players, especially with the cost of NHL jerseys and how the quality, right? I want to get jerseys for players that are going to be around for a while. I want to be able to see the guys I like play and not just have it be changing every couple of years and all the drama of the NBA. So that's a debate for another day, but I think it's for the better of the NHL that we don't see all that constant moving and wheeling and dealing. We see it in other ways. I agree we could use more player trades in the modern day NHL than we see. There's a lot of picks moving around, but I like the team loyalty aspect and that players want to stay if they can.
I'm right there with you. I 100% agree. My only gripe is, as somebody in sports media, God, I love covering the trade deadline. It's so fun to talk about where guys go. It is a joy to me. I fucking love trade deadline day. I love just watching this player has just been traded. Okay, this player has just been traded. I love watching that movement go around the league because every management team believes that in some way trading this player away or bringing this player in is going to make their team better. So it's so fun to see these assets and these picks and these players move around. That's the fun part. But ultimately, I agree. I like seeing team loyalty, but boy, does it make for a juicy story when a big name goes on the move.
Yeah, certainly. And for the record, I did really enjoy trade deadline day, especially this most recent one.
So fun.
I feel like we threw back and forth so many messages. Like it had to be in the hundreds of messages you and I were firing back and forth with pulling news from different sources. Like, wait, where'd you see that? Where'd you see that? Oh my goodness, right? It's exciting. It's hard to track. Like we did this with the trade deadline day. We did this with free agency, like the first 24 hours, 48 hours of free agency. It is a lot of fun. A lot happens. There's a lot going on to talk about. So, I'm excited that as we have 2 trade deadlines this year in a way. So that is one of the benefits of the Olympics. We've talked about the struggles with scheduling, but a benefit is we get 2 trade deadlines. So I guess take that for what you will.
And I mean, this year might be even better considering that, you guys are competitive this year. So you might be bringing more players in, not just sending them out. So yeah, it'll be fun. But I'm going to keep us moving because I think we can have about 20 minutes here for In the Tank if you want to talk some Sharks, Dom.
Heck yeah. We can rush through some things quickly here.
Let's do it. Well, Dom, the Sharks have already exceeded my expectations for this gauntlet of a road trip they had to embark on. I said last week that if the Sharks got even 3 of a possible 8 points, that would be a success in my eyes. Well, they have exceeded that expectation and done so in a consistent fashion. Every day they grow, gain experience, and become a better team in teal. And now they have a top 3 spot once again. It's time for In the Tank with Dom.
And thanks, Corey. And yeah, I mean, the Sharks are a better team in teal, like you said. Top 3 spot once again, although Anaheim might now officially have just jumped us with that point tonight, or those 2 points tonight they would have. But hey, either way, they are in the hunt legitimately. They are a playoff team. And what have we been saying? They are not just sellers this year. They are surprise buyers potentially. Yes, they are still going to be sellers to some degree. It's going to happen. It's got to happen, especially for this team to get better. But much like Buffalo, this team has finally made gains. I don't know. With Buffalo, it's hard to say if it's unexpected because they've just been in an eternal rebuild. So was it ever expected, right? Was it ever expected to end? But they're in a similar place where they can be both buyers and sellers. So it's not just the Sharks. There's a few places in the league that with this added parity this year, it's going to make for a very exciting double trade deadline, let's call it. But we've talked a lot about trades. I don't want us to go backwards into that conversation we've already had. So let's talk games because the Sharks have been in a win one, lose one pattern from one series to the next of these back-to-backs they've had. Actually, starting last week with the win at home versus Dallas, finally, before getting absolutely pummeled by Vegas in the Tank the following night. So then, as you mentioned, Corey, they did better than 3 of a possible 8 points. And I do think more was potentially on the table. I think they played well across the whole road trip, but they did finish 500. Finishing 500 on a road trip all the way like on your furthest travel of the year is always got to be considered a win, a success, right? You're not losing points on your competition. You're staying level. And you're playing these top Eastern Conference teams. It's just long flights and back-to-backs, right? They were all like both series of back-to-backs. So all things considered, especially with wins over the Capitals and the Florida Panthers, feel really great about this road trip. And I think it's interesting to say, though, and why I mentioned the back-to-backs again, is each of those wins came on the front end of the back-to-backs. So we beat Dallas first, then lost to Vegas, then beat Washington, lost to the Detroit Red Wings, and then beat Florida, lost to Tampa Bay. So, it's hard to say, though, if it was exactly just because it's the second night of a back-to-back, because I'd argue that in each of those 3 back-to-backs, the tougher opponent, at least for the Sharks, was on the second night, right? Right now, this current day, today as we record, the Tampa Bay Lightning, I would argue, are a better team than the defending Cup champion Panthers. So if you tell me which team, I said it up front before this trip started, which game is the game that the Sharks should probably win, it was the game against Florida. And they went out there and did that. And if you tell me a Capitals team that's been a little up and down and struggling without Tom Wilson, or a Red Wings team who is one of the hottest teams in the league, I'd say the Red Wings were probably better. So just wondering, Corey, if on your take there, if even in the games they lost, it isn't necessarily a bad thing because they lost to really good teams. That's sometimes what the Sharks do if they're not the best yet, but they're not bad either.
Yeah, I mean, definitely can't complain. They still have a bit of that up and down play. And I mean, I don't think they played poorly against the Lightning. I mean, definitely an improvement from, you did talk about the Lightning, right? I'm not imagining that.
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I mean, you definitely didn't play bad, especially compared to the absolute drumming that they gave you the last time that you played. But, I think it just still shows a difference of simply, here's where you are, here's where you could be. The Lightning are hot, hot, hot right now. They are a difficult team for anybody to beat. So if the Sharks could have came in and even gone to OT, that would have been impressive. But just like you said, the fact that you kind of kicked the ass of the defending Stanley Cup champions who, got Matthew Tkachuk back, and everybody was hyping, oh, Matthew Tkachuk back. Oh, we're going to kick everybody's ass. Matthew Tkachuk is finally back. Everything's going to be good now. Didn't matter. Matthew Tkachuk got his shit rocked by, who was it? Desharnais, right?
I mean, yeah, that was the big one. Was Desharnais?
Was it Dellandrea or Desharnais?
No, it was Desharnais. It was Desharnais.
Desharnais lays a massive hit on him. Tkachuk kind of gets into a scrum. Otherwise, doesn't have anything meaningful during the game. The Sharks shut him and the rest of the Panthers down. And again, the Panthers are still injured, absolutely. But the Sharks, and I mean, the Panthers have beat some good teams this year. So the Sharks kind of made an example out of them. So I think that is a great measuring stick point that the Sharks, even though they're not, again, world beaters at this moment in time, they can still come in and put an exclamation point and solidly win a game, especially against a tough opponent like that.
Yeah, and I'll dive into it more here as well with you, Corey, because they beat the Panthers, I think, in every phase of this game. And it was a physical game. It wasn't easy by any means. They didn't run away with it either, I don't think. I don't think Florida ever felt truly out of the game. But the Sharks, when they took control, did a good job of holding that, which they haven't always done in the past. And I think that's where you talk about some of the up and down. But bonus fun fact for tonight, this win against the Panthers marked the first time since the 2011-12 season that the Sharks had a season sweep against the defending Stanley Cup champions. That would have been Boston at the time when the Sharks last did that. And it ended a streak of 6 straight losses for Team Teal and Sunrise. So great to see them get off the schneid in Florida. I mean, so many good things. I think just doubling back to where I started really quickly before I dive into the game specifics is Washington and Florida respectively have 54 and 53 points, and both are multiple games outside of a wild card spot in the East now. Neither of those teams would be a playoff team and have some work to do to catch up right now. Whereas Detroit and Tampa Bay are tied for the lead of the entire Eastern Conference, a full 12 points ahead of Washington. So while we expect good things from Washington, know they're a good team with some of their injuries, I'm just trying to acknowledge that where the Sharks are, and they're this playoff team in the Pacific that would not be a playoff team if they were in the East, but they can beat some of those teams that are outside of the playoff picture in the East. They're not just click in like with all those other Pacific teams, just tag them on the end of the bottom of the East. That's where they would start. Like they're not better than any Eastern teams, right? That's not the issue here. The Sharks have shown that they are better and capable of winning games against these experienced and talented teams. They just don't have the experience, the talent, that consistency to beat the best teams. They're not a cup contender yet, is I guess what I'm saying. Detroit this year should be considered a cup contender with how they've been playing. Tampa Bay this year would be number 2 in my power rankings just because the Avs are uncatchable. But otherwise, they are the best team in the league right now with how they're playing. So those losses are not bad losses by any stretch of the imagination. Even if the Sharks didn't play their best in those games, they were still in those games. And they probably could have won the game against Detroit if they hadn't let some mistakes get the better of them. A couple of turnovers were very costly in that game against the Lightning. And I think it's just that those fundamental mistakes and just experience that you gain along the way in those losses, that that's what we can hope for here. This team is not going to be perfect. They're still learning. They're very young. They're rebuilding, but they're competitive against those great teams that are competing for a cup this year, and they're winning against the good teams.
Yep. And there was, if I recall, something else that happened in the game against Florida. Something monumental.
Ooh, which monumental are you talking about? Are you perhaps talking about a goalie fight?
Or are you talking about a goalie fight?
Well, let's talk about a goalie fight, because it's been the first one since 2020. And oh my goodness, okay, so first of all, I get it. Desharnais tripped the guy. It was accidental. Then he takes a dirty shot to the back that wasn't penalized, like a cross check. And that was like the one thing, the most obvious call that started all the escalation in the kerfuffle was the dirty check to his back long after the play was over. It wasn't like he hit a guy dirty, right? And so that pissed off Nedeljkovic, and he came right out, going right for the player. For the life of me, I can't remember who it was.
Evan Rodriguez.
And he was throwing punches with Rodriguez. Didn't he used to be an Avalanche player?
He did, and I actually meant to put him on my trade candidates. I genuinely completely forgot to put him there. But brief thing, he would be a great fucking third line center for the Avalanche if they were able to bring him back, because Florida's going to be cap strapped if they have to bring back a bunch of players in the playoffs, and he might be a cap casualty that they could trade away and the Avalanche could steal. So Ooga Booga, he would be great. He plays really well in the playoffs, and it'd be cool if he came back. All right.
And would be a steal. Great get that in there. That's a great point. But yeah, dirty, unnecessary, I think, is maybe not dirty. I mean, it is, but an unnecessary escalation. It's not like Vinny Desharnais did anything horrible or egregious. So I don't know. I liked Ned coming out there and defending him, even if he was kind of hitting a guy with a blocker, which is frowned upon. Then Bobrovsky just comes sprinting down the ice, and you got Sharks trying to go, Ned, like turn, and he turns just in time. They lock up. They throw some goalie punches in that. There's arms swinging and flailing. The helmets are off. They both get ripped off. They're out near center ice now, or like at least further out of the zone, right, closer to the blue line. And they're just swinging, and nothing's really hitting until Ned takes down Bobrovsky. But man, it was electric. Goalie fights are so rare these days, but also so much fun. I myself was just like the Sharks. It was just like Macklin Celebrini and Misa and Regenda jumping up on the bench with cheesing from ear to ear with the biggest smile, banging the stick on the boards. Oh my God, it was such electrifying, right? And I was just literally jumping up and down in my bed. First time I've done that as an adult in years, because, when you're an adult, you learn not to do that. Don't jump up and down on your bed, kids. Bad things usually happen, like broken arms. So don't do that. But this one time I did that because I was just losing my shit watching this goalie fight. I was so happy. I was like, yes, I'm actually seeing this. It's my team. And look at Macklin and Misa. They're just having the best time, just big cheesing on the bench. That lifted my spirit too, where it's just reminding me yet again, this team is so much fun. I am in love with this team. They are having fun. They're just so calm and casual and have built themselves up. The culture, the team bond that they have is so deep, and that's what the best rosters have, is that going to battle for one another and that brotherly love for one another, to defend each other, but also just to get hype and support each other. Yeah, throw down, let's go. So anyway, Corey, I've been rambling there. I know you want to say some more too, so please talk more about the goalie fight, because I need to pause all the emotions here.
I mean, only that when I saw, and it's now a GIF, the reaction of all the Sharks players on the bench. All these basically they're children to me and you. They're all 5-6 years younger than you and I. Some even more, just jumping up and down with giddy glee, because just like you said, it's been you said 26 years since a goalie fight happened, because the refs always stop it, because safety and everybody else can fight, but not goalies. Ooga booga, that's stupid. So, for the Sharks and their basically group of young kids to be the ones who get the goalie fight, their reaction, I think, is one of not, teammates, but hockey fans. They're like, oh my God, we're watching a goalie fight and it's our goalie. I can't believe it. So that was honestly, I think, the best part of the whole thing, because was it a very good fight? No, not really, because I don't think any blows were actually landed. They were just kind of trying to grab at each other, but they were so bulky that nothing actually landed. So it was just fun to watch.
Yeah.
Everybody just had fun.
That's the thing. Exactly. You don't expect the punches to land. It's very unlikely that they will, with all that extra padding that they're trying to work around. But it looks silly. It's funny. As a fan, we all enjoy it, and it is rare. And I'm glad that they let him go. I'm glad that they didn't give him game misconduct, so they both got to finish the game. That was just great all around. Nobody's really gonna get hurt, ideally, right? If they've got all these pads, they're not gonna catch a weird one. It's only if they fall awkwardly that you would think an injury might happen. So what's the harm? What's the risk? And we were all Macklin and Misa. That was all of us fans, like you said. They exactly were that. They were fans, and that's just, again, what gives me so much hope and love and admiration for this team is that they are playing this game they love, and even still on the bench, they're just a fan and having a good time. Yeah, Macklin sometimes gets shit for being this Gen Z type kid who's on the tablet on the bench, but he's a kid. And he's studying. He's literally looking back on his own game in real time, trying to improve, like they do in the NFL with these full-blown professionals in their 30s. So you know what? It's not a big deal, everyone. You can chill out and stop making fun of him. My point is he's watching and he's learning and he's there and he loves it. He's a fan of the game he plays as well. And so that's just another great sign for this team, another reason to love this team. Mention Michael Misa too, because he did get to play some time on Macklin's line, and he's going to get some more time here on the wing, it sounds like, in upcoming games, and just test that out, see how that goes. A little similar to what Will Smith had. But man, he was centering a line with Chernyshov, which they played together in the OHL. I want to say, right? Misa and Chernyshov, they were on the Saginaw Spirit together, I want to say a year or two ago. And they played really well together. And then you put Regenda out there with them, and they were a really good line, because that fight happened in the third period. And it was great to see the Sharks showing that heart, that fight. Yes, they were hitting Florida all game. I think they outchecked Florida. Desharnais destroyed Tkachuk in his return, and I lost my shit then. And that was early. I was like, womp, womp, fuck your life, Matt. Welcome back. Like... That was so much. That was such a fun game for me for so many reasons. But I wanted to say this about Misa, Chernyshov, Regenda. That was our third line, and yet they were responsible for setting up 2 goals by defensemen. And it was first one for Vinny Desharnais, who also statistics hit only his second career goal. First game he's back from IR and playing for Vinny Desharnais. He blows up Tkachuk in the first. He gets this goal, the second of his entire career, his first in 144 games since 2023. I mean, what a game for Vinny Desharnais. I don't know if I have him as one of my Sharks of the Week, but he should be an honorable mention. Michael Misa I have as my third Shark of the Week. Played his best game of his career in this game against Florida, centering that line, helping set up on those goals. Mario Ferraro was the other defenseman who put the Sharks up 3-0 in this game at the time, I want to say. Yeah, it was still 3-0 in the second period. So, I mean, it's just so exciting to see the future, because Chernyshov and Misa playing together. Misa has his best game. Desharnais blowing up Tkachuk. We got a goalie fight. Macklin's jumping up and down on the bench, and he was flying on the ice too. This was the first time all season that the Sharks won a game when Macklin didn't get a point. That was the thing. All of these other things happened, and we beat the defending Stanley Cup champs at their own fucking game without Macklin Celebrini getting a point. Like, if this game does not give us hope that in the future this team is going to be legitimate and that we're on the way there, because that's been the issue is if Macklin doesn't score, if Macklin doesn't carry, this team doesn't win games. How about the first one coming against the defending cup champions? If that's not like a sign of what's to come, I don't know what is. I'm going to take a water break, Corey. So please speak at will. Speak freely.
Well, you kind of really touched on the final point that I wanted to make is I think the part that I was most proud of, despite them, win one, lose one over this road trip, was that they did win a game without Macklin getting a point, and the fact that it was against the defending Stanley Cup champions. Despite the fact that they're out of a playoff spot, they might not make the playoffs. Florida is always a dangerous opponent to play, no matter who's on their staff. Paul Maurice is an incredibly good coach. They've always had, or they have an incredibly good system that all of their players can play. So the fact that you didn't need Celebrini to beat this team is exactly as you said, an excellent sign. And I mean, you said more than that I don't really need to add on to. It would just be redundant at that point.
Alrighty, then I'll keep it moving because I know we only had limited time in the tank. But basically, this game against Florida, please go watch the full game replay if you can, or watch every highlight you can find. I promise you it's worth it, and we'll have some of them linked in our description because this was a fun game. This was just a fun game. Something similar to the other game this week against the Capitals. The Sharks did score 3 straight goals in this game in the second period. And against the Capitals, they also scored 3 straight goals in only 2 minutes of play in the first period after having conceded a power play goal. And that was depth scoring again from a Stepchuk, Graf, and Regenda. With the goals, and Graf and Regenda also each got an assist on each other's goals to lead the Sharks with 2 points on the night. But on the third goal against Washington, and this is really the only point I want to say from the Washington game, did you see, Corey, this pass from Macklin Celebrini, like this primary assist that's highlight reel?
I did.
He's along the boards behind the net with his back to the center of the ice, so he's just looking at the fans if he wasn't looking at the puck. He puts a backwards centering pass through his own legs to Regenda, who's out alone out front. Oh my goodness. And that was the game winner right there at the end of the day. Because in the third period, like the Sharks really owned the Capitals in these first 2 periods. I think they were out shooting them like 23-8 after 2 periods. They did let the Caps climb back into it. They did play a lot of defense in the third period. And there were some nail biting moments, but they were able to get the win this week. So again, another good win against a tough Eastern opponent, even if they aren't in a playoff position right now. Still a high class win that, again, coming from not just Macklin Celebrini, but success from down the lineup, which is a great sign to see.
Yeah. And I mean, that's just high level player stuff as well as good team chemistry. I think overall, these guys have bonded super well. And I mean, that's just Macklin trusting and knowing where his line mate is going to be to even make that no look pass. So it takes a lot for that to go right.
I've said it before. Regenda's got an agenda, and he's done it. Agenda. And I really hope we sign him, Agenda. I really do. I hope we give him an extension and any other endas, because he's a UFA G6 at the end of the season, which I'm not going to dive into. Just go on Puckpedia. They explain it. But man, he only costs $775K right now. He deserves to be given like one of those $1 million or 1.5 2-year extension type things. Keep him with the team. He fits in so well with the chemistry, and worst case is an AHL guy, but he wants to play at the NHL level. He could. I mean, I love this team so much, man. It's hard to contain or even say anything else beyond that.
Nothing more needs to be said. Your love can be felt, Dom.
Well, with that in mind, I know we touched on a couple of the other games, and we're probably close to wrapping up on time if I haven't run over miraculously. So just to restate or make it clear who your 3 Sharks of the week are. At number 3, I am going to go with Michael Misa with the best game of his career versus the Florida Panthers. And since returning, he's looking good. He's looking good. I think World Juniors helped. I think even though he had a couple of struggles there, I think it helped him get his head back in the game after having that injury and stuff. So I think he's going to shine more here down the stretch. At number 2, how about Will Smith returning from IR? Oh, by the way, we haven't said that yet. He returned against the Detroit Red Wings, scores in his first period back on the ice in beautiful fashion, and actually scored with goals in each of his first 2 games because he opened the scoring against Florida as well. And your number 1 Shark of the Week, it has to be in these games where Macklin's not carrying the team the same way. I got to go with Alex Nedeljkovic. 35 saves on 36 shots faced against Florida. He gives the fans, the team, everybody what they want with a goalie fight. But he was also in net for the win against Washington. So remember earlier when I talked about the common threads in these wins? Who was in net versus Dallas? Who was in net versus Washington? Who was in net versus Florida? 3 straight wins for Nedeljkovic. I'm pretty sure it's more than 3 straight losses for Askarov now. I don't know if you realize, Corey, how bad the stats are. I'll have to dive into it more next time because we just don't have a ton of time right now. But Askarov hasn't had an above 900 save percentage in a single game since December 29th against Anaheim, when he still let in 4 goals in that game too. So it's been a bit of a slump, or more than a bit of one. And I think we'll see Nedeljkovic starting more based on his 3 consecutive performances that I thought were rather good.
Perhaps Ravensburger is the future of Sharks goaltending, but we'll see. Don't give up on Askarov just yet. Maybe he's just going through a rough patch. But I think Ned definitely earned that top spot. Speaking of top players of the week, here's your top players from me. At number 3, it is a tie between Ryan O'Reilly and UC Saros, because God, they fucking earned that player of the week spot begrudgingly. Number 2 was Brock Nelson, and number 1 was Nathan McKinnon. Between the 2 games that we talked about today, those guys just flexed their metal the best, in my opinion. But your fun fact today, we talked about goalie fights, and I think we're going to learn even more about goalie fights. Your fun fact is brought to you by Dom from the Tank. Dom, what do you got for us today?
So I did some digging, because what a great opportunity. Obviously, you'll see it on social media, everyone talking about it. It's the most obvious one to find when the last goalie fight was, right? And one of the most iconic ones happening in 2013, maybe, between a one-sided encounter, that is, involving Braden Holtby, if you know the one. But I think with everything I did digging into goalie fights, it turns out what the Sharks broadcast had was the best one of those, as Alex Nedeljkovic is only the 5th player during their career to have what I am calling the goalie Gordy, which is, in 78 years of tracking fighting majors, Alex Nedeljkovic was only the 5th goalie to have a goal, an assist, and a fighting major in his entire career. So that's been going back to 1947-48, when fighting majors were first tracked. He is only the 5th goalie to have had the Gordie Howe hat trick, just not obviously in the same game, but in his entire career. So I'm calling that the goalie Gordy. Corey, I don't know what you think about that, but do you want to take a guess at perhaps who any of the other 4 guys are?
I feel like I have to go back to the 90s for stuff like that, or early 2000s. Am I in the right ballpark there?
Yeah, I would say so. There's some scattered here. I don't actually remember every single era offhand, so I'm pulling them up right now.
I'll go just based on their fight, Patrick Waugh and Chris Osgood. That's. I'm gonna guess those 2.
Chris Osgood is on the list.
Yes,
he is the one on the list with the most NHL games in his career at 744, who has also had a goalie Gordy.
Yes. Okay. Any hints on the other ones here?
Well, the next one's the oldest one, so I'm just gonna give him to you. It's Billy Smith. From late 80s, I want to say.
Yes, I'm familiar.
From that era. But the last 2, I do think you'll know. I think their names are pretty big names overall in the world of hockey.
Jordan Binnington.
No, you would think he would have one though, right?
You would think that.
No, think for this next one, think a certain battle, a famed one between two Canadian
fucking Mike
teams.
Smith and Cam Talbot.
Yes, sir. It is Mike Smith. Cam Talbot, I don't think, has the assist in his career, so he does not technically have a goalie Gordy, but Mike Smith does. There's one left. Do you want to guess it, or should I just reveal? Because you've done a great job.
I've already done good so far. All right, I need help for the last one here. I need another hint.
All right, I'm pulling up just so I can make sure I give a good one. Also on the earlier side was a rookie in the late 80s.
Oh God,
playing for the for a certain team in Philadelphia.
Curtis Joseph.
No, that's a good guess though. It was actually Ron Hextall.
Oh
who,
God,
of course,
I'm so
is
dumb.
Now known for being a GM of the Penguins.
I don't know why my brain went to Cujo first. I'm gonna look really bad if hold on. Please tell me Curtis Joseph played for the Flyers. Am I stupid? I am stupid. I'm so stupid. He did not play for the Flyers. Ignore me, everybody. I didn't say that. I didn't say Cujo. I didn't say it.
Well, anyways, I didn't catch it either. You can tell our tired brains as we're wrapping up this episode tonight. But I hope you all had fun and enjoyed the goalie fight. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. Go look up some of the best ones and your favorites. I think Patrick Waz is still probably my favorite one I've ever watched. But yeah, I thought it was really cool to see that the goalies deserve some type of hat trick, some type of credit for having done those things. Goalie goals are obviously very fun. Goalie assists are also rare. Goalie fights are iconic, and I've only been like 43 in recent history, or that can be tracked and officially considered a goalie goal where both guys got fighting majors. So anyway, I hope you all enjoyed, and if you haven't, go watch it online.
Absolutely, you should. You're doing yourself a disservice if you don't. Isn't hockey romantic? Well, everyone, the clock is counting down to the final horn. We really appreciate you taking the time to listen to this episode of the Captain Avalanche Fancast. If you have something you want to know about the Avalanche, Sharks, or just hockey in general, reach out to us on our socials or email, and we'll be happy to try and answer it. The best thing you can do if you like what we're doing here is to follow us on whatever platforms you're using and share this podcast everywhere you can with everyone you can. I'm Captain Avalanche Corey.
And I'm Dom from the Tank.
Check out our new episodes every week. Thanks, everyone.